Hi, this is the video for Wednesday, February 24th in AP Literature. Here's a quick look at what we do today. It's an organization and ideas day, and that typically means we're going to have a timed paragraph, sometimes a timed write, a full one, but today it's just the paragraph. So in large group, we reflected on the Musée de Beaux-Arts, a poem that you read for today. It's a really good tool for building background knowledge as you look at today's prompt. I gave a little instruction on how do you do this weird assignment of a first paragraph and a thesis. It's kind of a half assignment. So what does that look like when it's done effectively? And then I gave your classmates time to write that paragraph in class. So we set the timers for 20 minutes and we wrote. And then asynchronous time is really for reading because the writing was all done in class. So if you're watching this video and you weren't in class, I'll just try to take you through some of the steps that might help you. I do still want you to do these. I think Wednesday is the most important BG day. Either Monday and Tuesday come together. And then as I look at goals, so many of you have established goals in the world of organization and timed writing, and that's nice. So let me try to help you out. Oh, here's our icebreaker playing Where's Waldo, and that was to set up this idea of where's Icarus. So the poem you read for today, Autumn, that's called ekphrasis, when a poet writes about a poem or writes about a piece of art. Can you find Icarus? He's here. Poem is interested in how tiny and significant he is in this painting. And we'll see that in the language. The poem is here. And it's not a centerpiece of our class. So if you read it, the main things I want you to get out of it are what is the myth of Icarus? It's captured in the poem and in the painting. In Bruce, for example, everything turns away from the disaster. What is the disaster? This boy, Icarus, is with his father, Daedalus, as they try to escape prison. And Daedalus, who's the center, makes wings for the two of them to fly. And as they leave, Icarus flies so high with his elation that he's flying that he gets too close to the sun, and the sun melts the wax on his wings, and he falls into the sea. So here it is. The sun shone as it had to on the white legs disappearing into the green water. That's Icarus. And the expensive, delicate ship that must have seen something amazing, a boy falling out of the sky, had somewhere to get to and sailed calmly on. So the poem is really about just how indifferent we can be to each other's sufferings and struggles, and how at the end of the day, suffering is a really isolating experience. And that's really good, and I'd love to hear some of those thoughts at the beginning of class. But what I want to make sure we establish is this idea of Icarus and his story. Because today, you'll be writing a timed paragraph called Icarus. So success is going to look like some models here in the timed write world that are weird, right? I'm asking you to do, I say this is a weird assignment, slow yourself down. I'm asking you to write half of an essay. Why? I really believe that if we can slow ourselves down and focus on the organization and the thesis and then the beginnings of the argument, we can imagine the outline of the rest of it and gain the flow that we need to succeed in the rest of the essay. When we try to do the whole essay, we can get really bogged down in racing to the point we want to make without defending it. That's what I've learned in my time trying to help students with this. And so we're working on just the first piece. Here's a model of what that looks like. So these are all going to be about Good Country People from last week. Here's my thesis and my first paragraph. So visibly, that's what it should look like. You don't even have to read it to look and go, oh, am I doing that? The thesis here is the character who changes the most in the story is Joy/Holga, but to call it change misses the intensity of the transformation. Because she never saw it coming, Holga is instead reduced down to nothing. So I'm doing a conceptual thesis. It's unclear at this point probably what exactly I'm going to start with, but I know where I'm going to go. conceptual theses are like that. They're not necessarily laid out in a really orderly fashion, but the writer is in control and has a very firm grasp on, these are the points I want to make. The first point I want to make is about her name and how she's trying to change, but it's superficial change. And so this whole paragraph is me making that point. I never stray from that point. I'm just going to read the first and the last sentence. Before she is stripped of all her tightly held coverings, Joy attempts to transform on her own, but her intended change is superficial only. That's my topic sentence. It's idea-based. I want to capture that she's attempting to change, but she doesn't know how, and I'm only going to think about the name. As soon as she is able, she changes her name to Holga. Now my last sentences are with that point still. There is no strength to the name she has chosen. It falls away as soon as it is in the hands of Manly Pointer, who reveals the lie it contains. The problem, I think, for us is we want to move on to all the other ways she changes. And we want to get into Bible salesman and how he helps the change along and all of the things that happen after he takes her leg off. But no, we have to stay focused on one point at a time so we can really defend and explore it. If you want to see what else I've said, press pause and read the whole thing, or it's available. I'm going to show you two more models, student models. So first, Lane has this really great list thesis. These are both list theses to show you what that looks like. Lane writes, the change exposes her, Joy, her desire to be loved, reveals her insecurities, and reveals her weaknesses. Each of these elements of her being are quite multidimensional, and they bring with them many negative aspects, but also ways for Holga to finally grow as a person. That second sentence is kind of like a hint of where Lane is going to go, and perhaps the conclusion. The first sentence is the thesis, and you hear her 3 points. Desire to be loved, reveal her insecurities, reveal her weaknesses. So I expect the first paragraph will be about that first one, her desire to be loved. And that is indeed what it is about. Analysis paragraph 1, Holga's desire to be loved. I already hear it. Organized. Is something that Holga was never fully aware of until she encountered someone to project it on. Really interesting analysis. And then I'm going to go kind of all the way down to the bottom like I did before. The whole paragraph should be about that desire to be loved. This marks a change for Holga because despite shutting off the world for so long, she opens herself up to love at the first opportunity. That's great. I can see how Lane is able to stay with that idea, but she's going to move with it. And now she's setting up this idea of insecurities, which naturally extends from the concept of her wanting to be loved so much that she's going to do anything it takes. So the key here is it's just that first point that's being argued. And let's do one more example. This is Hayden's. Another list thesis. The character that changed the most is Holga, formerly known as Joy, as the changing of her name, her health defects, and her encounter with Manly Pointer all show her growth. List thesis. This is nice. Hayden is buying herself some time. She's going to have to eventually show what kind of growth is that, but it's okay to not have that right away in the first paragraph. Instead, she has set out for herself a roadmap to analyze the changing of her name and how that encounters this idea of change. And so I expect her first paragraph to be about the changing of her name. Holga's development in the story begins with her changing her name from Joy, which assuredly does not represent her personality, as in reality she is more grumpy and closed off in nature. Really nice. Idea-based topic sentence that's linked up to that first concept. It's also all the way through to the end of the sentence, giving us some ideas and personality traits about Joy. So it doesn't go into plot. It stays with this grumpy, she's closed off by nature. So Hayden is leaving herself a lot of things that she can talk about. I expect the whole paragraph to be about the name in some way. There's so much to say about her name. And it is, all the way to the end of the paragraph. It also shows that she believed her mother was wrong when naming her, and she had the ability to correct this wrong by picking out a new name for herself. So if you don't yet feel comfortable with moving into the conceptual thesis because this assignment is so strange, do a list thesis. It's going to give you a really tight space where you can analyze well. And that is your task. So here it is written out. Timer is set for 20 minutes in the class, so if you're at home, set your own timer. It's artificial, right? Like if you go past the time, you can start to write in red or something. Just make it clear to yourself, how am I doing with these time constraints? I'm not going to come down on you or anything. Generate a thesis statement and a first analysis paragraph, not the whole essay, in response to the following prompt, which is linked. Tips as you read. If you're looking for meaning and feel lost in this poem, find pronouns. Ensure that you can go back and find the antecedent to pronouns to connect the meanings together. See connotations of literary devices you find. What are the ideas associated with them? Pick just a few key moments. Those are my tips that are linked to the standards we looked at this week. Here is the prompt. Once you have this in front of you, once you've read through it, that's when you'll start your timer. Oh, sorry. Hold on, let me fix it. All right, it's fixed. So here it is. I'll read the prompt, but you can do it yourself too. The following poem, written by Edward Field, makes use of the Greek myth of Daedalus and Icarus. Little asterisk there if you want to go down and remind yourself what we just said and talked about. Read the poem carefully and write an essay in which you analyze how Field employs literary devices in adapting the Icarus myth to a contemporary setting. So what this is asking you to do is to choose some literary devices that connect to meaning and the way that it's developed as a new poem, and you'll see that when you read it. But reminder, don't write the whole essay for me, just generate a thesis and your first paragraph, and that is it.